Generally, what happens is we write a database query like select star from user where login is equals to so and so and password equal to so and so. And in program, we put the same query in a particular variable, and we try to call this query from a program. Now, when we type whatever is marked in red colored over here, single quote or 1 is equal to 1 semicolon. This red colored content, in fact, this is also in red. So this is what we typed in just now. So when I type in this particular value, single quote or 1 equal to 1, then what happened is this actual database query has changed to this format where double hyphen is nothing but the comment in a database. If you take a MySQL or SQLite database and all, double two dashes are commenting. So as soon as the user entered the single quote or 1 equal to 1 so and so, the rest of the query related to and password is equals to this value is being commented. And now the query has become select star from users where login is equals to single quote empty single quote. So there is no first value or 1 equal to 1. And you know, in any language, 1 equal to 1 is always true. And so this query has become true over here. Since this query has true, the logic that the programmer have written in the program has returned the value true, and so we are able to log in successfully. So with the magic code that we entered in the login page, we are able to change the programmer's logic that he has written in the program and perform a login without actual username password. I don't know username password, but we are able to log in into the system with this magic code. This is possible because application is vulnerable to is not validating the username password before he logs in. Before the query executed, he is not doing a validation over it. Yes, good question. Why we are able to log in into admin? The reason is in this scenario, if you see any database related queries, what happens is the database results whatever first whichever has a condition has satisfied at which first row, that first row result will be given to the user. Now in this scenario, the admin username related record is there as the first record in the table. And when the database, this query has been pushed to database returned true for the first user's record. And so I have become an administrator. If the first user is something else, I may become that user. So for in our perspective, generally administrator user also we should, that's why we should use always a user which is not in the, even in the beginning, nor we should not keep his record in the last. It should be somewhere in between in the tables. That is one of the best practice that people are recommend to follow. So that's how we have become the administrator now. Now say for example, if this magic code, in fact, you don't believe it, today also we see this magic code directly been working on many of the public facing websites. It's not only very weak things, many known websites also have this kind of a magic code behavior where without username and password, we are able to log in into systems and access the applications. Now say for example, this magic code do not work. How will the user perform attack? The other way is I was referring to error codes. Like if you remember my initial session, 500 series errors usually help the attackers to understand much more because they reveal application level errors. Now say for example, without entering any special code, I just enter single code, no other value I'm entering, and I click on login. It has given me 500 error. So as soon as a 500 error is thrown, immediately we can try to look into the error. We understand from this big error message, whatever is there, we can try to look into the page and understand if we can get any sensitive information. Now when you see here, the first line itself says that this query. So I have entered single quote. So my value single quote has gone over here. It is giving me error that my query is not complete. But from this error, I am getting information that the table name is user, and in that table there is one field called as login. Now I try to perform some more injection on this. I say single quote group by login, and then semicolon double hyphen. This continues because I want to comment whatever is there in the program later with respect to the database. So I put single quote group by login. Let me see if this works. And say login. Okay, now it has given me again another 500 error. And now if you see here, it's giving me information user.user ID. So basically these 500 errors are usually helpful for developers because through 500 errors, they try to get a stack with which developer can fix their programming errors. So this 500 error is trying to help a developer to understand that you are putting a group by clause and a login, which is not appropriate. Maybe you have to try on another field, and that another field could be this user.user ID. User is the table name, user ID is a column. Now I try to put group by login. First field I understood, second field also I understood user ID. I put user ID and then again login. And see, you see another column. So like this, from the error codes, I'm able to get the structure of the complete database table, the table of the user table's complete information. I'm putting another field also and then login. So like this, we are able to get the complete information about a given table. This is what is an SQL injection attack. One direct vulnerability over here, there is no validation available over here. Whatever we enter in the username field, it is accepting and the application program is directly executing it. That is the reason it is happening. But in some cases, people do validation, but they do it at the client side. Like as soon as we type here, we see a small pop-up, which is generally generated by JavaScript. So if a validation is done using JavaScript also, it can be bypassed. If I just disable JavaScript in my browser, those errors I can't see. I mean, application won't stop me. I can still enter these values and proceed further. So this is how the SQL injection works in. I'll just give you a glimpse of another example of the same thing. Instead of login, the same page, this is another products page is there where a list of products are available here. Now say for example, this what is the intention of this page is it's just trying to search in its table database. For example, I just copied one of the product name and I entered here and I say search. So from this behavior, we understand that application is trying to search for this product in its table, in its database and giving me the result. If I type some product name which is not available, it doesn't give me a result. It means that application is trying to take input from user, search in the database and give the result. Now with this same scenario, I will take an advantage and I try to add another query behind this. Through the login page, we understood that there is a table called user. So I try to club the user table data over here in this page. Let's see whether it works out. Yeah, it worked out. So this is the user table data I can get over here. Select star from user. I have just appended it to the existing query. And then you can see this is the username, this is the password, and this may be the role. And maybe there's another field with which they're trying to differentiate what will be the role ID. So if our application is vulnerable to SQL injection, we can create any kind of attack. And this kind of vulnerability is something wherein we can even create the operating system level users. We can do a port scan on the internal systems. There are so many attacks that are possible. And this is the top 10 vulnerability, first vulnerability and the list of top 10 called as injection. What we demonstrated is only SQL injection, but there are many more injections. I can inject HTML, I can inject iframes, I can inject programs, then many more injections. So injection itself is the first top 10 and for the last 10 years, injection was remaining to be the A1 vulnerability among the OWASP top 10. So that's about the injection vulnerability, and there's also HTML injection possible. And so the mitigation is we need to follow the proper validations and all to avoid these SQL injection attacks. So now from this scenario, maybe you all have an idea on what is SSL and all, though we did discuss much about it. I'm just putting a small question. Whether SSL or HTTPS protects an application from injection attacks. Does it protect or not? Can somebody put answer one of any of these? A, B, C, D. Yes, as they are encrypting the data. B, yes, as it is secured with the certificate. No, as it only performs encryption. And no, as it cannot validate the data. Great, thank you very much. Many of you have answered. Yes, the answer is C and D, both are correct, because the reason is HTTPS, the job HTTPS is to perform encryption. And yes, it do not perform any kind of validation. So if I'm having HTTPS, what it can guarantee me is even attacks will get securely delivered to the server. If somebody is performing an SQL injection, even SQL injection is performed on the server successfully. HTTPS securely encrypts that without the firewall to even detect it, it will send it securely to the server. So that is how, yes, even if you have SSL, we should not think that since I have SSL, injection attacks are not possible. Injection attacks wouldn't be possible on your application only if you perform proper validation of applications. If not, even HTTPS cannot stop our injections. Yes, confidentiality only is guaranteed with the HTTPS. Our information is encrypted, but information, it is secured, or it is a valid content or invalid content, nothing has been verified over there. So SSL only is meant for the confidentiality purpose. Yes, thank you very much. So quickly moving towards OWASP next top 10 vulnerability is the broken authentication, which is nothing but the bypassing the user credentials. So really, HTTP is a stateless protocol because HTTP itself do not know whether a user is a valid user or not. For that purpose, applications try to manage the sessions by creating the correct session ID with the applications. Now, in such scenario, it is the responsibility of the application to actually look for in each and every page whether this is a valid session or not. That is the responsibility of the application developer. But what is happening in most of the cases, people try to put it in the part of the URL like this. As you can see in this scenario, this session ID has been part of the URL. When the session ID is part of the URL, hackers also can try to get this information by performing network level attacks because URLs are not encrypted in the network level attacks. So attackers can see the session ID at the same time when you are accessing the website. If your Wi-Fi is compromised or your network level is compromised, somebody can see your session. He can set the same session in his browser and try to misuse the session over there. Similarly, there may also be other types of vulnerabilities with respect to sessions, which can lead to attacks. This is one scenario where session is being verified improperly. Like I'll just explain this scenario. This is a PHP exact code. Though it is a code, we have tried to put in a English language for you to easily understand. So the first purple color block, what you are seeing, is basically a page which is deciding on to a given user which page I have to show. As you see, if there is a valid session, first line talks about if there is a valid session, then it comes in. If that user's role is administrator, give him admin page. If he is not and his role is not admin, give him user page. Now, in the admin page, what I'm doing, if a valid session is there, give him the admin related content. Similarly, in the user page, directly give him user page. In this scenario, what kind of an attack is possible? A user can log in. After a user logs in the URL, if he just type in admin.php, will he be able to access the admin page? Because yes, he will be able to, because the reason is in the admin page, we are only checking whether his session is there or not, but we are not checking his role. The authorization bypass is something that authentication is whether I am a valid user or not, I am telling to the system. After I am a valid user, whether I am privileged to access this page or not is called as authorization. Both of these checks have to be done at each and every page, which is not been done in most of the applications today. And that is the reason this is one of the OWASP top 10 stands in the second place in the OWASP top 10 list. So because of this, now you see in the admin page session is checked, but his role is not verified. And so any logged in user, if we change in the URL, the name of the file, he will be able to access the admin page. So the best way is in the right side, green box, whatever code you are seeing, this is a scenario which has to be followed each and every page. Now in the admin page, I check whether session is there. After that, I need to again check whether his role is admin. Though I am checking his role in the first page in the purple box code, again in the admin page also, we need to verify whether he is the admin or not, then allow him the admin. Otherwise, you have to inform that you are not an authorized user. Believe me, This simple way of checking is also been missing in most of the known applications, and this privilege escalation is happening in most applications. So verify with your developers whether this kind of a programming technique is being used to ensure of verifying authentication and authorization in each and every page that is being accessed across the applications. So this is one way to protect your applications. So similarly, with respect to sessions, there are many more vulnerabilities like session hijacking, session fixation, and so on. These slides along with notes is available in the e-learning. You can refer. In case you have any questions, you can reach me anytime. So I'll quickly move to the next vast top 10 vulnerability, which is called as sensitive data exposure. So sensitive data exposure is referring to the issue wherein we were discussing about the headers and all, right? Where a lot of information is revealed. So it is about the same thing where improper hardening and all is being done of the applications. And there are some attack scenarios we are explaining, which will give you some information. XML external entity is about entity injection in vulnerabilities related to XML based attacks. Say for example, there are web services. This is a little technical. I do not want to go inside this, but I just give you a glimpse. For example, nowadays, what you can see is, I'll take you, yeah, this is the page. Nowadays, most of the applications are trying to communicate using web services, or I should say JSON. Generally, when you load a web page, no, you don't see any page getting loaded, but dynamically there are some parameters keep on changing, like statistics of a website, or very simple thing you can see is you have a registration page. I choose a state. As soon as I choose a state, Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, immediately the district associated with that state gets loaded in the next field, right? This behavior you see in many places. Many applications try to handle this behavior also using web services or using JSON. In such scenarios also, this XHC kind of an attack is possible where again validation is not being done properly, through which, as you see here, this is one of the payload in the bottom bottom left, if you can see my mouse pointer, there is a doc type kind of an injection where we are doing. I can try to perform load a payload to fetch a etc password file of the server. When I enter this kind of a payload over here, this is gone to server and server responses back with me the complete etc password file. So XXC is a vulnerability through which you can extract anything from the server, be it a database content, be it a text file content, be it a system level files content. So again, the solution for this is to perform the validation of each and every input that is coming from the users. And the mitigation steps are being explained in detail, so I'm not putting time over here for mitigating. Okay, it is 1:15. So furthermore, the other OWASP top 10s are also being explained. Naresh, should I stop the session or any questions you have? Participants, any of the participants have any questions? Okay, so broken access control is also related to similar thing, wherein related to sessions only, but here the URL based control is being modified to access it. So all the other vulnerabilities you will be able to understand by reading the notes of the presentations. So because the time is done, I'm just trying to conclude this session with this topic. If anyone have any questions, I can quickly take up. And the slides are available to all of you in the e-learning mode. So you can, the slides are associated with its notes also. If you have any questions, you can definitely put in the WhatsApp group. I can discuss to you on that part. Any questions? To anyone have any questions? Anybody have any questions? No? Insufficient logging is basically a major instance. For example, there are two ways. One is many people log each and everything that comes on the server. That is not a good practice, because logging each and everything also tries to fill the log very fast, and thus the DOSs are possible. Second thing is, in the recent the research behind this tells that in the recent days, When any incident is happening, there are no sufficient logs for any organization to explain or demonstrate what could be the root cause for that particular attack, how the attack happened and all. Because many people are not trying to log the application data as much as possible. One is we need to maintain audit trail so that we understand a user's behavior from the time he accesses the system till he log out, what all things he have done on the website, including what input he have entered, what query he have executed, all of those things need to be logged. That is called as an audit trails. Second thing is the logs should be sanitized. Sanitized in the sense, through logs also people are trying to perform application level, OS level attacks. If log is trying to store everything, I can even spoof the entry that is going into the log and execute system level commands there. Those logs, when are read by the SIEM, I think previous session there is a discussion with the SOC and SIEM, right? So when those SIEMs actually read the logs that are being generated by application, if people know that organization is having this environment, what they do, they inject a query into application which get log in the log file. When this log is read by the SIEM will try to misunderstand that log and try to execute that. At that point, an attack on SIEM is possible. Though this is not an attack targeting the application, it is performing an attack on the SIEM or SOC environment. So logs maintaining properly and all is very, very important. Otherwise, log-based attacks or for tracking the incident at later on also would be easier. Sir, actually, due to non-availability of much more information on what could be the reasons behind insufficient logins, auditable events, login failed, high-value transactions, and all these things. This will help us to understand the log-related informations. And these are the mitigation steps that are available for the insufficient logging to be addressed. Great, sir. Thank you very much, and thank you for your active participation also. What?